let's get started on our Snowflake Pendant by first going to the jeweler's bench, and we're going to create our center stone. And I think I'll make it about 1.5 carats. And we'll choose a fun color. Doesn't matter which color, of course. I'll do it ruby. And then we are going to go ahead and set up our setting for this, and we're going to use belts and claws here in the gemstone settings. So we're going to select the stone first, click on belts, and we'll start in the middle tab for the top belt, and we're going to use custom shape, and we'll pull that from the library. Bring this up a bit. Right, so in the library, we're going to go to 2D symbols and then rails and square number 2 at the bottom here. And of course, you can use any shape you want. Okay, so from the front view, we'll adjust this. Right now, our rail is going into our stone. So we're going to go back to that first tab. I'm going to scale up our setting just a little bit so that it's protecting our stone here on the outside. And then we'll use the blue arrow here to drop it down in the Z. And we just want the stone sitting on that rail. And then finally, we'll go to the third tab and do the same thing, custom shape, library. Open this up a little bit. We'll go to rails and square 2. Okay, I'm going to set the distance between the two a little bit more. Let's go a little more than that. And then I'm going to set this angle, this first angle here, to 0. And that'll make them the same size. So we have a straight up and down setting for this one. And that's it. We'll validate that. Okay. And next we'll do the claws for the prongs. And so we'll select the stone again and click on claws. Okay, so the first tab we've already pre-selected our anchor, which is the stone. So we'll go to the second tab, and for the shape we'll use round and make this a little bit larger. I'll do 0.75 and rounded tip. And then we'll go here to the height tab, and we click our little shortcut here to see the prong a little clearer, and we'll adjust our heights. So for the top, bring that down, and the bottom, bring that down. Okay, second tab, we'll do the offset. It's at 0 right now, which is about halfway through the prong. I like to set that to about 0.2. Oops, 0.2. And then we'll adjust the bottom visually. And then maybe give this a little bit of a curve. So I'm going to change the claw shape to easy curved so that I can bring the bottom in a little bit. Something like that. Okay, so this is a large stone. We might want more than 4 prongs, so we're going to go to the position tab. We're going to go ahead and copy that first set that we have here with the mirroring and do a plus here in the list. So that's going to copy all the settings from the first one, so we don't have to change anything other than the positions and the mirroring. So be careful when you mirror with just 2 prongs like this. Right now there's 4 prongs on top of each other. That's going to cause a Boolean issue. That one should only be vertical if you're only using 2 from side to side. And then I'll go back to the first set of claws in the list and move this so they're even. So that should give me 3 notches in between each. Yep, so nice and even there for 6 prongs. And again, you can customize that as much as you want. So we'll go ahead and validate our claws. Okay. So there's our main setting. Let's go ahead and set up our accent stone that we're going to copy around it. Now, instead of trying to build it in the middle because we've already got this here, I'm going to go ahead and create a new plane to work from. So back in the solid module, we're going to go to plane here in the support section, and we're going to set that parallel to the OXY that was selected. And I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so I can recognize it apart from my other planes, and then just move this down here so I can see a little clearer. Actually, let's center that back. Let's work from this. No, let's go ahead and do that. Yeah, move it right down here. So it doesn't matter exactly where, just down here, so we can work in this plane and not have to worry about hiding or moving this one. So we're going to go back to the jeweler's bench, stone, pretty much just repeating what we did before, but we're going to do that with a different shape. I use marquees in my design. You can use ovals, round, any shape you want for these, which is fun. And I'm going to set the length to, let's say, 7 millimeters. Again, the size of the stone will be up to you. And we'll choose a different color for this one. So I'll just do diamonds. Okay, and then we're going to run our belt. And we're just going to use one belt on this one since it's a little bit simpler setting. So I'm going to go to the third tab and turn off the bottom belt and then work on the top belt. And I'm going to use the same shape as before from the library. Rails, square 2. And of course you can use any shapes you want. I'm going to turn off the ratio for the size and make this one a little bit narrower. We don't want the hole to be crisscrossing itself there in the middle. And I'm going to make it a little bit longer as well. And then we're going to go to the first tab and drop that down again so that the stone is sitting on the seat and not through it. Something like that. And we'll validate that. And next we'll do our claws again. So select the stone, claws, second tab. I'm going to leave the default size since it's a smaller piece here. 0.6 is kind of the minimum I go with prongs. And then we're going to go to height. Oh, let's go back to that and do rounded tip. And then to the height. And we'll use our little shortcut again and set that a little lower and pull that down. Okay. And then offset. I'm going to do 0.2 and 0.2 or 0.1, give it a little bit of an angle. Actually, we'll tuck this in a little bit more. Something like that. And then we'll just adjust the positioning for a marquee. I'm going to do just 2 prongs on each end, something like that. If you want to get these closer to the end, if you can grab that red dot there, you might have to zoom in to grab it. If you still can't move it, use this little meter here. Just reposition it. Once you get it off of that arrow, it should be easier to slide. So we'll give it something like that. And validate that. Okay, so we got our setting. Now, if we look at it from the side, our setting right now is going to be way up here. We want it to be more flat with the bottom of our pendant. So I'm going to select all of these objects here and add a move, rotate, scale. So back in the solid module position, move, rotate, scale. Actually, I want to make these even. So what I'm going to do instead is, let's start with the center setting here. Select all of that and do a positioning instead of the move, rotate, scale. And we're going to position it from a side and bottom so that the bottom of our piece is sitting right on that plane. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing with this one. So select all the parts and also this little plane here because we want to set this one on top of that plane. So positioning from a side and the bottom of the object. Now we should have them set perfectly flat, aligned to the plane. That's what we want. And then we have one more object I want to add here, because if I just bump this up against the setting, it's not going to be very secure with this marquee. So you can add some sort of decorative element or some sort of attachment here on the end to connect the two parts. And I'm going to keep it simple for my design. I'm just going to use a little sphere. Something like that, maybe a little bigger. And position it. And then from the top view, we want to make sure it's centered along the x-axis. And then we can tuck it in under here, like so. Okay, so now to make this parametric to the size of the stone, we need to connect it to the stone. That way, if we change our center stone size later, it'll change the positioning of our object here. So to do that, I'm first going to filter my stone from the rest of the objects here. So I'll do a filter by in the group section. Filter by, and you can do type or material in this case since they both would work. And click OK. That'll separate the stone from the rest of the group. And then we're going to right click that stone and do an extrusion. You can also select extrusion from the solid menu. And we're just going to extrude it on both sides. And that's just extruding the shape of your stone. So we have a nice little cylinder to attach our object to. It's much easier to attach it to this than this group here because the uneven nature of our setting. So we'll do that to the cylinder. That way too, if we change the stone size, the cylinder size will change. The cylinder will just be a temporary hidden object. So next we're going to go ahead and go to position, and we're going to do a lay on. So lay on allows us to drop objects onto other objects. So we'll go through here in the list to see what we're selecting. So we have more than one object. I've got my group with the stone and my sphere here. So if you do the little blue drop down, it'll give you a list instead of a single selection. And we're going to do our accent stone group and that little sphere we created. And then the support objects is going to be just the cylinder. Once you select that, you can hide your cylinder. And then we're going to change the projection. Instead of lowering it onto the object, click this little hand and just use the arrow that's pointing the way you want to project it. So it's going to be that end there. And then we'll come over to the side and we'll add a little offset to get this all connected. There we go. And validate that. Okay. And now we just have one more simple step, and that's to take our group and circular duplication. Okay. 10 is the default. You can adjust that number depending on how close you want these together, how many stones you have to work with, and so on. And validate that. Okay, so next steps, of course, is you can adjust your center stone size. Don't change the shape, of course, because we're working with circular duplications. Anything other than round, it won't really match your stone shape. If you change your accent stone shape and sizes, be careful because you may have to reset some of your options for your belts and claws, but that's not a big deal. Just go into the history. You'll probably want to add a bail, attach it to the top, or you might want to attach it between two. You can always adjust your circular duplication angles like so if you want to leave room for a bail in here. Cancel that. And of course you can add a chain as well for rendering purposes. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this project and we'll see you next time.